Hey folks, Nick from Bell's Data here, jumping into part 1 of our draft model. Now we're going to be looking at the AFL as an example, but a quick disclaimer, the AFL does not endorse and is not involved in the development of this model. We're just applying it to the AFL to see how it could look. So I was going to release this next week after the end of the home and away season, but I started jumping into the data last night and oh my goodness, if this was in play this week, this would be so exciting. So let's have a look at how the model looks. Okay, so if we have a look at the current draft model, it's essentially the ladder that's flipped. So we can see that North and West Coast have the first couple of picks. The problem with this model, and the problem that sports face all around the world, is that once you're out of finals contention, there's no incentive to win. There's actually an incentive to lose and improve your draft position. So sports around the world have tried to introduce different anti-tanking measures. If we look at the NBA, this is a popular one. They've got the lottery system where if you miss the finals, you get a certain number of lottery balls and then they do a big lottery, and that's how the draft order is decided. If you follow the NBA closely, I actually don't think this prevents tanking. I think this incentivizes more teams to tank and try and improve their odds and then try and get lucky in the lottery.
So this is where our improvement model comes in. It's a very different model. It's quite a controversial model. You may be very skeptical of this model when you first see it, but I hope you like it at the end. It tries to do two contradictory things. So we try to continue to support poorer performing teams with access to good draft picks, but it brings in a second element of improvement. So to look at your results in the current season and the previous 2 seasons in regards to wins and draws. And if you make improvements over that time, then your draft order could be significantly improved. If you don't, then your draft order will be lowered. So there's big incentives for even making small progress to the previous season. A couple of extra wins in a season could drastically alter your draft position. So let's have a look going into the final round of the AFL season, how the current standings would look. Okay, so if we head into the current order heading into the final round of the AFL season, we have Adelaide in pick 1 after being absolutely robbed last week.
The Crows were robbed right in front of me. Right in front of me.
We've got North and Gold Coast currently tied for pick 2 and 3, and Hawthorn and GWS with an asterisk for pick 4 and 5. In part 3 of this series, I'm going to deal with finals teams. It's the extended version of this model. Now the key thing this model does, and the reason why Adelaide is on top, is that it values improvement. So that's why they're sitting currently on 18 draft points. North Melbourne are currently on 16, but let's have a look at the influence if they were to win this week. If we add an additional win to their column, they move up to 18 as well, and they'd in fact actually move up to the first pick of the draft because they've got a lower percentage, and we want to protect those teams. So there's huge ramifications. So let's have a look at the current games coming up and how huge these could be if this model was in place. Okay, so we've got the Bombers and Collingwood to start. Big game for the Pies trying to lock up top spot, and the Bombers could potentially move into the top 3 with a win in our model. The Hawks and Freo, huge game for the Hawks. If the Hawks were to win, they could potentially move into the top 2. We've got North and the Gold Coast. This would be a huge game. This could just about be the biggest game of the round. They could be playing off for pick 1. The winner of that game could be getting pick 1. How good would that be? We've got the Lions and the Saints next, which is an important game for finals places. Geelong and the Bulldogs, they can improve their draft position with a win. The Bulldogs potentially could make the finals as well at the moment. We've got the Eagles and the Crows. Now, big game for the Crows. If they were to win, they could potentially secure pick 1. The Eagles, who have been punished the most in our draft model, currently sitting at pick 9, could move into the top bracket with a win. Now, you might think the Eagles very tough on them, finishing in pick 9. They won 10 games in 2021. They've been horrible for the last 2 seasons. So if you do fall away like that, then you are punished by the model. We've got Port and Richmond, probably a bigger game for Richmond in terms of draft position here, and Port's trying to lock in a potential home final if results go their way. Sydney and the D's, big game in terms of finals positions, and Sydney's trying to lock in their spot, and Carlton and the Giants, a really big game for finals as well. So just about every game this round would be enormous in terms of either finals positions or draft positions. So that's the great thing about this model and why I love it so much. Hey folks, part 2 of our AFL draft model. Last week we built the model. This week we can have a look and see how things would have played out. We've added a lot to our dashboard this week, including a number of drill through sections, so you can find out a bit of information about the model and some of the mathematics behind it. But in the basic model we can see that our draft order is here and that North Melbourne would have got pick 1. If you remember last week we talked about the scenario of North Melbourne playing Gold Coast with the winner potentially securing pick 1. that would have occurred, and that would have been super exciting if this was in place. You can see that Adelaide and Gold Coast got the next couple of picks, and then the Giants coming in currently at pick 4. Now the finals teams have an asterisk next to them because we've built a more advanced version of this model which shuffles the finals teams into the second round. Head over to the advanced model, we've built a matrix for this example, so you can see at a glance the picks that each team have, and you can see that the finals teams are now coming in pick 20s. Now the reason behind this, I believe that this would help fast track rebuilds. It would also help those teams that get stuck in the middle tier of teams, so towards pick position 9 to 12. It's quite hard to move from that spot up into the top 4. So this really helps those teams. It does punish finals teams, but I think this would be great for movement throughout the competition. So that's the reason I built that. But you might prefer the basic model or the advanced model, up to you. In the next video, we are going to have a look at just a deep dive into some of the analytics behind this model and why I think it could be beneficial for the AFL. Hey folks, part 3 of our draft model, looking at the AFL as an example. In this video we're going to be jumping into some of the analytics behind the model. So we can see we're in the about section here about the model. We can see the calculation of draft points for a team, and it is quite simple to understand. It's a team's ladder position plus or minus their improvement in that current season times 2, and then plus or minus their improvement from the previous season. So this factor here is multiplied by 2 to try and make it always more important to win rather than lose to improve draft positions. That's built into the fundamentals of the model. If we head over to the analysis tab, we can see a comparison of the current draft model that we have and our improvement model. And these lines are meant to represent fans' interest in their team's performance. In blue we have the current AFL draft model, and when this declines, this is a visual representation of the points in the season when a team fell out of finals contention. And you can see that that really drops away as we go into the back end of the season, which is understood. Our green model, our improvement model, we predict that this would slightly increase throughout the year and reach a crescendo at the end of the season when people are really interested in draft picks and really interested in that draft order. And if our model was in place, that draft order would be moving around a lot. Now there is quite a significant gap when we get to round 24. In truth, the gap would not be that large because this is not the only determining factor for fan interest, but we are in no doubt that this model would create more fan interest for the AFL. And even if that was a really small percentage, this is a percentage that would be applied across all teams that are not making the finals. So that's at least 10 teams. So even if that's a small increase in those teams, that could still be a significant difference in crowd numbers, in people tuning into TV, and people interacting with the AFL itself. So to summarise, we believe that this model incentivises winning. It probably results in teams resting players a little bit less and playing more mature players to try and get wins as well, which could be good. We believe that it increases fan interest, which in turn will be of financial benefit to the AFL. If we look at just the advanced model, that model helps to speed up rebuilds and would help to increase the fluctuation of teams up and down the ladder, which we think would be a great thing as well. So I hope you enjoyed the model. If you do have any feedback, please feel free to get in contact. I'd love to see what you think about the model.